Organizational behavior, human behavior at work, chapter 13. LOs, organizational content for teams, the nature of teams, life cycle of a team, teamwork and characteristics of mature teams, process consultation, and team building skills, self-managing teams. So organizational context for teams. You have the classical organizational theory, the process of starting with the total amount of work to be done and dividing into divisions, departments, work clusters, jobs, assignments, or responsibilities to people. So regardless of your age, if you've ever worked anywhere, you would have most likely fallen within this organizational classical theory, which most people do. Organizational context for teams. So when we look at the context for teams, you got efficiency and integration of efforts are achieved through division of work, creating levels of authority in functional units, delegation, assigning duties, authority, and responsibility to others consistent of multiple levels of authority. So this is your structure we're referring to now. Is how are we set up? Are we set up to be successful? And you have to have some type of structure in order for things to function and move properly. Classical organizational structures are mechanistic in nature. So they're very methodical. Strength, task support, weaknesses, psychological support. Modern organizations, less structured as a result of downsizing and creativity of creation of boundaryless organization, more flexible, organic, and open. So when we think of things in a classical, traditional sense, things have changed quite a bit. Now, a lot, particularly with, even as we speak, a lot of stuff that's happening is we think in terms of downsizing and reorganizing, less structure, less boundary, and a lot of times you see more autonomy for people when they're working in the workspace. Matrix organization. So overlay of one type of organization or another, so that two chains of command are directing individual employees. So again, that overlay of one type of organization and you have two chains of command separates organizational activities into projects that compete for allocation of people and resources. So what you may give example, you may have an organization where you're actually assigned to a group and that's where you work, that's who you're assigned to, that's who you work with. That's who you officially are with. But you may be assigned to another group that's doing something in addition to that, which has a different chain of command. So now you have your permanent boss and you have your temporary boss while you work on this project. Matrix organization. So we look at the matrix organization with benefits. Focuses on a single project, permits better planning and control. Members gain valuable experience. Team develops a strong identity. Changes in complex projects are handled efficiency. So when you see this, when you have this group in this matrix operation and stuff, they, like I said, you may be working on something. It's like they focus on a single type project, and doing that. That's when these teams, because you're not doing 50 things, you're doing one thing. Groups have a propensity to get close. The members do develop strong identities and roles and stuff in which they play. Continued matrix organization. Distribution of authority and status is more in agreement with employee desires for increased autonomy. And notice I said that earlier in the previous slide, that increased autonomy. Cross-functional teams created when matrix organizations processes applied on a large scale across organizational boundaries. So when you find it draws members from more than one specialty area. So you may have a group that you're assigned to, but you're also assigned to a special project. Well, in that special project, you have people from 6 other groups also assigned to it. And you all are working together to bring that project, to complete that project and bring it to a close. Exhibited when members of a task team know their objectives, contribute responsibility enthusiastically, support one another, task team, cooperative small group in regular contact, engage in coordinated action. So again, when you're working in these special groups, they're small, they have a lot of autonomy. You get to know people, and people know their objectives, and usually what I've seen in the past, when you have people who pull together for special groups, a lot of times you're pulling together people who are really good at what they do. They're very competent. You don't stick people over there who's not good at their job or don't know what they're doing. Some key differences between groups and teams. Now, there are differences. For instance, when you look at a group dimension of comparison, so you look at work products, group, you have individual, team is collective. So when you're in a group, everybody has their project that they're working on. When you're working in a team, things can be interdependent. And so what I do actually affects somebody else and somebody else affects me. Performance monitoring source. With the group, it's external, and with the team, it's internal. So when you look at how it's they're monitored different because they operate different. Focus of activity, efficient task performance, and with the group, problem solving for the team. When you see that, like again, if your job is to make widgets within a group, that's your job. With somebody else is to stamp the widget. Somebody else is to get the raw materials. And a lot of times when you see teams, problem solving is what their focus is. Leadership. With the group, you have one single person who's usually in charge of the group. When the team is collective, a lot of times you're working together, and sometimes it almost appears you have more than one leader, but you find ways to make it function. View of conflict, dysfunctional and discouraged within the group. You don't want to have that. It's any type of dysfunction, whatever it is, because it upsets the balance of the group. Basically, it's how people view it. With the team, functional, encouraged, because they're trying to solve problems. Therefore, they want to see conflict and see it and deal with it accordingly. Stages of team development. So when you see the stages of team development, you see, and this is how you'll see the forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. So you see the bringing it together. The forming is when you bring it together. The storming is members compete for status and control. Arguments take place about the direction of the group. External pressures interfere. So this is the rough part right here. When you're forming, bring them together. Now you're trying to actually get functional, operational. Norming, group begins to move in a cooperative fashion. So now you find norming, when they get to this phase, now they figured out whose role is what, how you're going to get things done, whose strengths, who has strengths in this area, who's got weaknesses, so on. And so now they're actually operating and functioning. Performing, groups mature and learns how to handle complex challenge and functional roles. So once they start to get the norming, now when they're performing, they get efficient. And now you can actually start seeing things working in a manner that actually shows tasks are accomplished efficiently. And a journey. And this is when it says run its course. Now you've solved this problem as a group, as a team, and now you're done. Potential team problems. Challenging compositions. Teams must learn to manage their internal turnover by anticipating and accepting it, developing a plan for it, deciding how to best integrate new members. So when you have these teams and stuff, guess what? If they're working on projects and they're long-term projects, people come and go. Well, it has to be accepted and has to be understood that that's going to happen because that's normal. What you have to have is something in place to deal with that. Social loafing occurs when there is a perception of unfair labor, division of labor, low achievement, motivation, belief that coworkers are lazy. So when you find this is like when you say, there's an old saying, a chain is only strong as its weakest link. When somebody's determined to be the weakest link or whatever else, there's a perception that things aren't fair and things are not getting done. And like some people say, well, you know what, he's getting paid the same way I'm getting paid, but I'm doing twice the work. That's always a potential problem. Perception of meaningless of work. So feeling that one cannot be singled out of blame. Sucker effect. Member believes others intend to withhold their efforts and thus he or she would be foolish not to do the same. So when you look at this is where you have potential problems. Meaningless work is, the bottom line is, people want to know whatever they're doing has value. It means something, not only to them, otherwise they don't put effort into it. And you're feeling that one cannot be singled out for blame. So you know what? You do have to call people out. Sometimes you feel like you don't want to do that because you're in a team environment and you don't want to hurt people's feelings. But if they're not underperforming, you have to call it out. And the sucker effect, sometimes it's referred to as sandbagging. It's when you think, well, these people are on a scale of 1 to 10, they're only giving a 7 effort. Then I'm not giving a 9 or 10 if they're doing that. So you can see where that's counterproductive. Impediments to the creation of a cohesive team. Inattentiveness to the team results, failure to hold individuals accountable, lack of commitment to group effort, reluctance to engage in debate and conflict, lack of trust. So when you look at these things, this is where you have people who are within there and you have some issues. Such as, again, holding people accountable. You have to hold people accountable, whether they're performing or not. You have to hold them accountable. Lack of commitment. You have to make sure when you put these teams together that you're putting people in there who are committed to whatever it is your endeavor. And again, with this conflict and debate can be bad. It can be bad if it's viewed bad, but it can be positive if it's viewed that way. Because, out of that comes conclusions and resolutions. Ingredients of effective teams: supportive environment, skills, and role clarity. Superordinate goal, higher goal that integrates the efforts of 2 or more. So when you look at this, higher goal, bottom line is you got 2 or more people where their goal is the same. Integrate their goals and bring them together. So they might not have the exact same goals, but their goals do integrate or join at some point. Shared mental mode. Teams should have a common understanding of the nature of their work and what it will take to accomplish it. People have to understand what they do, why they do it, and what the result is. They also have to understand if they don't do it, what the consequences are. So you have trust, team rewards, and empowerment. Positive norms. Dissent. Members find it acceptable to disagree. So when you find this is where if people are doing things, you accommodate, praise them and recognize them and reward them. And what that does is that reinforces positive behavior, and that's the positive norms. Members find it acceptable to disagree. Remember, when you're disagreeing, that means you're thinking. You're looking at different ways to do stuff, and you don't share one mindset. What you may find is 2 people have different ideas, but when you get to talking about it and they disagree, then you realize that a portion of each one of them are actually right. Team building encourages team members to examine how they work together, identify their weaknesses, and develop effective ways of cooperating. Team coaching leaders intentional effort and reaction with the team is to help its members make appropriate use of collective resources. So when you're looking at team building stuff, this is how do they work together? What's their weaknesses? Develop ways of cooperating. Give you an example. If you have people, everybody's got weaknesses. And when you're building a team, one of the things you would not do as a leader is put people in positions where you're working to their weakness, not their strength. And team coaching is, somebody's got to lead these folks and take them down the right road and help them and provide resources for them. Need for team building. So when you see the need for team building, you got these things are why you want to build a team. Interpersonal conflicts, low team morale and cohesiveness, confusion or disagreement about team rules, large influx of new members, disagreement over the team's purpose and task, negative climate within the team, stagnation within the team. So when you build a healthy team, a good team, and it's on a solid foundation, you build a team that can deal with these. Typical stages in team building. So when you think about what's the process and the stages. So identification of a problem. Okay, what is the nature and scope of the problem? Okay, now we know what the problem is. We've identified it. Collection of data. Okay, now let's gather data about that problem. As much as we can find out about that problem as possible. Whether that's recorded data or interviewing people or whatever else. Data feedback and confrontation. So when you look at the data feedback and confrontation, this is when you look at the data, you challenge it, and you look at it from a standpoint of playing devil's advocate that works. Problem solving experience. Now we're actually sitting down to solve the problem. Come up with solutions that may work the best. On the job and application follow up. So once the problem has been solved, now it's implemented and it's utilized on the job. Specific team building issues. So anytime you're building a team, there's going to be some issues. lack of awareness and disagreement about the purpose of the team, confusion about a team's fit within the larger organization, confusion about work relationships, dominance of interpersonal conflicts within the group. So when you see these, you have the disagreements, a lack of awareness, of agreement about what it is we're supposed to do. Somebody thinks we're supposed to go left, somebody thinks we're supposed to go right. We got to work that out. And the confusion about, well, how does this fit in the big scheme of things? We're working on this, but how does it fit in the big? Are you doing something or moving in a manner that's not consistent with the organization's wants and needs and where they're trying to go? And you got to understand, the work relationships, who does what. Everybody, a lot of times you find people who I refer to as alphas, so the step up, people fall into the roles. One of the problems that you run into sometimes is some people get a little too dominant and forget that it's a team and just want it to operate almost like their team. So, skills, consultation and interpersonal skills, research and presentation skills, process consultation, set of activities that help people focus on what is currently happening around them. So the interpersonal skills of the team is very important. Do you have people who have consultational skills and interpersonal skills? And give you an example. Do you have people that can get along and talk to people? Interpersonal skills. What if you have somebody doesn't have a great personality or introvert? Do you have people that can work with him or her? Somebody that handles the research side of, and there's always got to be people who have the presentation skills. So when you look at the presentation, because these are your people who actually you want to put out there to speak to management or present the product and stuff as a whole. So facilitators encourage employees to examine their intended and actual roles within the team, how the team discusses and solves problems, the use and abuse of power and authority, explicit and implicit communication patterns, feedback. So when you think of facilitators, these are the people I refer to as the engine that keeps the train going. These are the ones that make sure things are going smoothly, and if they're not, then they step in to intervene to ensure that they continue to move in a positive manner. Process consultants use facilitating behaviors to help teams function more effectively. So when you look at the facilitators, this is what facilitators are doing. Observing team meetings, why? To determine the intended actual versus role. So when you're observing a team, you want to see the reason you observe the team so you can see what they actually do and not try to say, I think I know what they do. Probing and question, identifying problems. This is where you actually start asking questions. It almost seems like you might be playing devil's advocate or something, but you want to make sure you identify the problems and make sure people understand them. Confronting individuals, examine consequences of behavior. So when you're confronting individuals, that's not negative. That's actually a positive, but you want to examine and see how people behave once that's done when you do that. Encouraging open communication. React constructively to current behavioral events. So you encourage this communication. Listen, one of the things I can tell you has a lot to do with times when issues arise in groups and teams, is to break down communication. People aren't talking. Preventing disruptive behaviors. So explore new ways to do things. If you find disruptive behaviors, you got to figure out that's counterproductive, and just try to figure out new ways again. Attending to nonverbal cues. To think and act independently. Encouraging widespread contributions. Desired effect, develop cohesiveness, and always encouraging learning. Common outcomes of effective teams. So you have performance, productivity, and improvements. So when you look at this, take a look at the improved product quality. So once you have that, what you will find is you have lower absenteeism. People come to work, they're happy, they're productive. Member attitudes, higher individual satisfaction. So when you see improved product, faster response time, more performance, more rapid innovation, increased customer client satisfaction, better decision quality, and greater efficiency. So as you read through the rest of those, you can see what member behavior you're looking at, and then you look at the member attitude. But you notice all of this is productive and positive. Territorial needs. Very important to understand the territorial needs. Okay, what this is, spaces employees call their own, within which they can control what happens. Layouts of teams-based organizations encourage easy interaction, exchange of ideas among employees engaged in related tasks. So even if you're working in a team and you're working on something in conjunction with others, you still have to have your own space. You don't lose your identity because you join the team. You bring your identity to the team. Stronger feeling of team identity. See, you have a stronger team feeling identity and stuff, but you don't lose yours within that scope. Neighborhoods of offices. So centers of related individual offices to encourage the formation of social groups. So you would have these neighborhoods of offices where individuals, they come together. Individuals to encourage the formation of social groups. So this a lot of times is where people feel the need to do this and feel the need to be social while they do what they do, and it's not required by the employer, but it makes good sense for the team. Self-managing teams, natural work groups that are given substantial autonomy. So when you think of self-managing teams, I've been fortunate enough to participate in some of these, and it's usually people who are very good at what they're doing with a lot of experience. In return, asked to control their own behavior and produce significant results. Referred to as self-reliant, self-directed, multi-skilling, learning a wide range of relevant skills, resulting in members becoming more flexible. So when you have this, you have a group. Normally what management would do when they come to a group like this, they don't come to them to tell them what to do. They come to them to ask them, what do you need? And how can I help you? Because they handle all of that. And they usually, for instance, if you have 10 people and 2 people go out on one on medical leave and one is on vacation, because of multi-skilling, they don't drop off. They have other people that can pick up slack. Advantages of self-managing. So everything has advantages and disadvantages. Advantages: improved flexibility of staff, more efficient operations through reduced number of job classifications, lower absenteeism, lower turnover rates, higher levels of organizational commitment, job satisfaction. So you will see that right there when you have the self-managing and you see the advantages of it. Disadvantages: extended time required to implement, high training investment, early inefficiencies due to job rotation, inability of some employees to adapt to a team structure. So that was one of the things right there when I've seen in the past. If you ask me which one would jump out at me the most, it's going to be inability of some people to adapt to that. And then after that, I'm going to say the extended time required to implement. Because when you're trying to do something new and start something from scratch, from ground zero, that takes time. Contrasting supervisory roles under 2 structures: traditional structure and self-managed structure. So in the traditional structure, you have authority figure, an expert, a teacher, problem-solving coordinator. It's more or less directing, telling people what to do, and watching over them and making sure everybody's on point. Self-managing team structure. Remember, I told you, you don't go and tell them what to do. You go and ask them what they need. Coach, counsel, champion, cheerlead, resource allocator. See what they need. What do you need? Liaison and boundary manager, facilitator. So you help them, give them the resources that they need, and let them do their jobs, and they will. A lot of times I tell people when you're living with a self-managing team like this, the best thing a manager can do is stay out of their way. Self-managing teams. Intentionality. Managers use their analytical ability to identify the roles needed at the moment, have the flexibility to shift roles, attempt to work with tricky members, make the team receptive to multiple roles. So when you're doing this intentionality manager, you set them up for success. These are the things you think about when you actually, before you start that team. These are things you take into consideration, because some of the things you have to, I'll give you an example. If you're thinking about starting a team and you're thinking about putting Susie on that team, but you know Susie's not a flexible person. She can only work one shift. You notice that Mike is a person who can only do like one role. He's not good at multiple roles. So you know that these people would not be good candidates for your team. Self-managing. So boundary spanners, keeping communication channels open and active by constantly sharing information with other units in the organization, people at other levels. So this is where you educate folks as to what's going on. Keep them in the loop. What you'll normally find with these types of teams, they will periodically do what I would refer to as briefings, give updates on things that's going on so that folks will know keep them in the loop and what's going on. Virtual teams, groups of individuals from around the globe that meet through the use of technical aids. Members are not present in the same location. Potential problems, individualistic behavior, feelings of isolation, lack of trust, extra coordination. These are more difficult because you may have people, and I'll give you an example. Not only you have people in different locations in the world, you have people in different time zones. So you can have some people, it can be 12 noon here where they are and 12 midnight where somebody else is, and they're on the same team. So, of course, this is a substitute for face-to-face. I always tell people, if you can be face-to-face, never choose to be virtual. That's secondary. Clarify goal and definition of major issues. Short, face-to-face meetings. Temporary on-location projects. Explicit definition of roles, expectations. Identification of potential problems. Frequent use of email and video conference. So when you see this change, it doesn't change what you do. It changes how you operate because you're virtual and you're not face-to-face. And it can be done. It should not be preferred. And one of the problems that I see sometimes is people will prefer to do this versus meet in person. And I've never, ever been an advocate for that. Meet in person if you can. Don't choose to do virtual. If you can't do that, virtual is your next second best choice. And obviously, there's nothing you can do about it, but you can take it and roll with it. And people do successfully utilize virtual teams, work in those teams every day. That concludes this chapter.